Good morning everyone, my name is Michelle, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to another video. It's Wednesday morning and it's very foggy this morning. It's mild, but it's very foggy. So yeah, the footage isn't the best. And actually I've only got a little bit of dog footage this morning because I don't know what happened. One of my files corrupted, it won't share, it won't do anything, so whatever. But I don't need much dog footage other than for you guys who like it, because I've got some things to read, we've got some things to go through, and we are covering actually three cases this morning. Firstly, and yeah, I'm like a dog with a bone with this, but I want to talk again just a little bit about Brian Kohberger, and did he get that research assistant post that he referred to in the email of April 12th, 22, when Brian Kohberger emailed Pullman PD Chief of Police. An eagle-eyed commenter pointed this out, so we're going to get into that. Oh, and before I forget, yes, I did get the date wrong on that incident report when Kaylee Gonzalez rang in to report potentially seeing a missing person. I said it was May 2021, but yeah, you're all right. The 3 million of you who commented to me yesterday saying, actually, Michelle, it was October 2021 because in the US, you do month, day, year. Here in the UK, we do day, month, year. And usually, my little brain can work that out for you guys in America. So, actually, Kaylee Gonzalez, we know she was living at 1122 King Road in October 2021, not May 2021. So, yeah, you were right. I was wrong. It doesn't make any difference, though. It just means she was living there over a year before the murders. So we've got that in writing. Secondly, I want to talk about the Delphi case because something came up in the Murdaugh trial yesterday that made me think about Delphi. So I want to talk about that. And I did say yesterday, I'm going to watch the Murdaugh trial and be a viewer, not a creator. But I'm going to get drawn into this, guys. I really am. It's looking like an absolute doozy. We're only on day 2. The trial hasn't started proper. This was pre-trial motions, and it was incredibly interesting. It's going to be a doozy. I'm going to get drawn into it. I just know I am. Anyway, without further ado, Brian Kohberger and this research assistantship. Now, this is the Washington State University's website, and this is the CSI Crime Lab. So CSI in this instance doesn't stand for Crime Scene Investigation. The acronym, they've used it cleverly, but it's the Complex Social Interactions Lab. So for those of you who were saying, well, Brian Kohberger couldn't have got the job because crime scene investigation is not a forensic scientist. But yeah, this wasn't a forensic science lab. This is to do with social interactions. So they're using body cam footage, some of it live feeds, to analyse. And if we look at the research team, Dr. David Makin, we talked about him in a previous video. He's the director and the co-founder of the CSI Lab. And his publications, his expertise is in relation to things like body cams. So it's about the social interactions that police make. That's one of the purposes of the CSI Lab. But if you just scroll down to the bottom here, this is the team that works on the CSI Lab. And we mentioned this person, Megan Parks, yesterday, who is a senior project manager for one of the grant projects that's going on out of that lab. She was already in post when these research assistants were appointed. And we've got here 2 women, Christina Richardson and Brittany Solenston. They are lab managers, research assistants, and public safety research fellows. They have a weird way of wording things in Washington State, I've got to say. In every university I've ever had contact with, a research fellow and a research assistant are different things. So research fellows generally are more senior than research assistants. But I'm wondering whether there's two kind of things going on here, that they're research fellows in public safety, but they're also research assistants in relation to the lab. Anyway, these are two females, and unless Brian Kohberger used to be on this and they've taken it down, then it does appear that he didn't get the job, because there was 4 candidates that the New York Times talked about, and then there was 2 posts. So I think one to cover Pullman and one to cover Pascoe. These 2 ladies here are on the website. Now, obviously I'm looking at this website today, 25th of January. I don't know what that was like on the day Kohberger was arrested. But I'm going to assume that he didn't get the job because there's 2 research assistants in post here. If he had got the job though, how alarming would that have been? Because he would have been a lab manager. But if you look at the Washington State University and kind of really dig into it, you'll see that undergraduates also work in the lab. They do like coding and things like that. So I think Brian, as a teaching assistant and a PhD student, would have had access to this lab. Now, whether he would have had access to the live feeds is another matter. But I'm like a dog with a bone with this, because there's a reason why he took this position. Now, it might be that Washington State University has got a really good reputation in criminal justice and criminology, and that's why he took the position here. There's no way in my mind that his studies made him become a murderer. I've literally over the last 20 odd years taught into probably the tens of thousands of psychology undergraduates and postgraduates, and none of them, to my knowledge, has gone on to commit a quadruple homicide or even any homicide. As far as I know, some of my students I had 20 years ago, I have no idea what they went on to become. But it's not the subject matter. Let's just get this clear. It's not the subject matter that's the problem. It's that Brian chose this subject for a reason. And I firmly believe that. I firmly believe that his interest in criminal justice, policing, isn't the same motivations as almost everybody else who wants to go into that line of work. I firmly believe that unless something really, really major comes along to change my mind, I'm going to carry on believing that. So I think I'm going to put this to bed, that Brian Kohberger didn't get the research assistant's job. Now, the internship that Pullman PD and Washington State University collaborate on is something different. I'm quite sure about that now. So the research assistant post and the internship post that the PCA said he went for, I think those are 2 different entities, 2 different jobs. I don't know still whether he got the internship or not. If he got the internship, then he would have been doing ride-alongs around the Pullman area. Does that fuel him in any way? I don't know. I don't think I'm going to get any firmer answers than this. So I think I'm kind of going to put this to bed, at least for the time being. But let me know what you think about all of that in the comments. All right, so I want to move on to the Delphi case. So yesterday was day 2 of the trial. They were still in the jury selection phase, but in the afternoon, I think a lot of people had tuned out, but it was really interesting. One of the things they discussed was the ballistics evidence. The prosecution was required to bring an expert in to talk about the cartridge casings that were found at the murder scene. So I'm going to play you what he said in a moment that relates to the Delphi case. But in the Murdaugh trial, the issue is that markers 2 to 7, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is Maggie, who was shot a number of times. And then this was Paul, Alec's son, who literally, not figuratively, literally had his brains blown out. This 60-odd page set of information from the defense is incredibly graphic in some ways. It talks about the injuries that Maggie and Paul had, but not getting into that, literally focusing on this issue because it relates to the Delphi case, which I've been covering on this channel. So the conversation was about these cartridge cases that were found at the scene. It reminded me of something in the arrest affidavit for Richard Allen, something that we have discussed on this channel previously. So I'm going to play the clip now. I'll be back in a minute.
One firearm at a previous time, can you do it without firing the bullet? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. The cycling marks sometimes could occur just from cycling through the firearm. For instance, if you were to load a cartridge into a magazine, or cartridges into a magazine, load that magazine into a firearm, and chamber that unfired cartridge into the chamber of the gun so it's in battery, ready to fire. If you decide not to fire that weapon, you may, in this case it was a rifle, pull back on that bolt handle. In that instance, the unfired cartridge would be extracted from the chamber of that gun and ejected. There can be marks left on an unfired cartridge due to that process without having firing the cartridge.
Okay, so that was a ballistic expert. He clearly said there that markings that he could analyse forensically under a microscope, unspent rounds can be ejected. And my mind straight away went to this in the PCA of Richard Allen. So between October 14th, 2022 and October 19th, 2022, the Indiana State Police Laboratory performed an analysis on Allen's gun. The laboratory performed a physical examination and classification of the firearm, function test, barrel and overall length measurement, test firing, ammunition characteristics, microscopic comparisons. The laboratory determined the unspent round located within 2 feet of victim's body had been cycled through Richard M. Allen's gun. The laboratory remarked, "An identification opinion is reached when the evidence exhibits an agreement of class characteristics and a sufficient agreement of individual marks. Sufficient agreement is related to the significant duplication of random striated marks as evidenced by the correspondence of a pattern or combination of patterns of surface contours. The interpretation of identification is subjective in nature and based on relevant scientific research and the reporting examiner's training and experience." So that's exactly the discussion that was had yesterday afternoon with the ballistics expert in the Alec Murdaugh trial. So I'm going to be watching this very closely because when they get to the trial proper and present that evidence, then I think we're going to learn a lot about ballistics and how that evidence can be presented and how the defense will maybe bring their own experts in to counter this issue. The issue in the Murdaugh murders was that some of the cartridge casings, so markers 2 to 7, the striations and the marks matched some other cartridge cases found in other parts of the Murdaugh property. They had their own shooting range, for heaven's sake. You know, rich and privileged doesn't even cover it. But yeah, so they were arguing that these cartridge casings possibly came from a gun that was no longer in the possession of the Murdaughs because allegedly it had been stolen. So yeah, I'm so going to get drawn into this case, guys. I'm going to end up with a Murdaugh trial playlist. I can see it coming. I just get engrossed in a case, honestly. So yeah, make of all that what you will, but it is going to be really interesting. And I think that discussion, as I said, is going to be very relevant to Richard Allen's trial as well. So I'm going to leave it there for today. That's the video, guys. Let me know your thoughts and comments below. As always, please like and share the video if you can. Liking costs nothing. If you've got social media, please share my videos and leave a comment. It helps me out. It tells YouTube that my videos are interesting. All right, guys. Goodbye from Miss Tillington and Miss Cassie Springer. I'll see you very soon.